on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk.
All right, Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent is with us. How are you?
I'm good, Nathan.
Are you?
Yeah. No, don't even know.
It's not a 0-0 draw.
Yeah, listen, I mean...
A bit of excitement.
Well, I mean, have you not noticed that 3-2 has become the new 1-1?
I know,
it's become the new Irish football scoreline. I did not.
That's when we know Irish football has really changed forever.
But it's like when it becomes, oh God, another 3-2, you know. If it's not an Irish football game and it's, you know, it's not 3-2, is it even a proper game? You know, like this is what we expect, you know, both teams to score more than once. Like that, I mean, all those years of those those friendly games that dragged along to nothing, sometimes even competitive games, you know, 1-0s. What we wanted was a 3-2 that made you wonder if everything was stable or not.
So we've just heard from John Egan, who is not panicking, freakish that we're conceding all these long goals. 9 goals now from outside the penalty area?
Yeah.
Is it freakish?
It's not that I'm not energised about this topic.
Come on, Dan. It's a friendly.
It's a friendly, but is it relevant to the France game? Have Ireland conceded a long-range goal against anyone good in a competitive match? Like a big game like this. I feel like this isn't going to be the thing that's going to hurt Ireland against France. I don't think France in the preparations are going to say, here's how we hurt Ireland. Let's just hit it.
Antoine, every time you get it,
ping it.
All the anger of not getting the captaincy, 35 yards out, just have a pop.
These lads don't like it up and from distance. You know, like this.
How did we become that team?
Like, you know, this is exactly what they don't want. I feel like in these games against the lower teams, and maybe you need someone with a more tactical mind to explain it, but there just seem to be these gaps that open up between defence and midfield that make it viable, and I feel like generally they squeeze things a lot more against the better sides, and actually you see the goals that Ireland conceded, I suppose, against the better teams, or even the chances they conceded. I'm thinking Serbia, I'm thinking the crosses against Portugal, you know, Scotland was a short corner, wasn't it? Or like, you know, it was a different type of goal, but it's clearly there's a pattern. I think it's a very viable concern when it comes to a certain type of fixture. I'm just not sure if it's one going into Monday, but like
a lot of your colleagues have been writing articles about it and doing the deep dive, and like the XG is 0.89, is it, or something like that, but we've conceded 9 goals, so that would suggest that there is a freakish element.
I think there is.
Shouldn't happen. But there's been a breakdown of the different types of goals, and you know, we think of Seamus Coleman switching off and not closing down, and there's been a couple of those 25-yarders where actually players are fatigued, tired, take a step back when they need to take a step forward, and there's a bit too much space. The one that feels more concerning is one of the ones of last night where the ball's bobbling around in the area and you just need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And Ireland don't get rid of it, and they're crowded, lots of bodies. There's always this huge risk of a deflection because there's so many bodies in there if the shot comes in. And I do wonder if that is a mindset thing of, we are a team that plays football. So even in that scenario where the ball's ping-ponging around the penalty spot, we don't just put our foot through it. We're always looking up. We're looking for an opening, somebody free out the wing where we can start a counter-attacking move, where sometimes the best option is just to hoof it.
Yeah, I see the point. I mean, I just think, to me, there's just like it's almost like the concession of one goal just seems to breed panic for the rest of that game. Like even some of the defending in injury time, Nathan Collins would make quite a good block, and in fairness they did, I think, boot it at that stage, and a couple of occasions that did happen, but to me it was more they conceded. Like everything was fine really, although I still think there was a little bit of sloppy signs in the first 25. There just wasn't a particularly good standard of a game really, in terms of like you can just get away with things. So I felt like, well, the team was doing okay and were reasonably comfortable in the first 25 minutes to half an hour. They weren't being asked to be any better, and as a result they were able to let their own standards slip. And once they conceded one goal, all of a sudden it was just like belief ebbed away. And it did remind me a little bit of the Armenia game in September, where our last 3-2, of course, where just when the ball went into the box there was a sense of, oh no. And even just the fact that O'Shea and O'Dowd are just going for the same ball. I mean, it was sort of a comically bad goal to concede, really. A bit of bad luck with the deflection, but
it's not a comparison.
The application that led to it.
But Manchester City in the Champions League, and that sense of when one thing goes wrong, lots of things go wrong, and they concede goals quickly. And part of the conversation around that over the last couple of years is that Pep Guardiola doesn't like leaders on the pitch. You know, he likes his players to do what he wants them to do, and when it goes wrong, there's nobody who can just grab the game by the scruff of the neck, who can settle everyone down, who has that Roy Keane type attitude of, I'm the leader of this, we're the most experienced team, we know what to do. Is there any sense of that with Ireland in these games, that there's such inexperience in that back line that started, that when they concede that first goal, there's nobody there to say, let's just settle this for 10 minutes. It's a friendly at home to Latvia. We're 2-1 up. They're not offering a huge amount. Let's just keep this calm. Instead of, as you say, all of a sudden for 10 minutes there's complete and utter panic.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that way. You know, they're at their most vulnerable when they've conceded a goal. You know, and even think about it, they have conceded some goals in blocks of two. I mean, 2 late goals in Portugal. Serbia sort of hit Ireland twice, didn't they, in the 3-2 away, and a couple of other games. I mean, Scotland, everything was looking good at half time. So yeah, I can see what you're saying. In terms of the leadership angle, yeah, I mean, it is a point. I mean,
but just game management, that there's somebody there
yes,
who on the pitch, and maybe that is as much an ability thing as a leadership thing, that is there somebody in that midfield area who can grab hold of it, who can dictate the tempo of the game. We don't really have that player.
No, I think like ability has to be a factor. Like, it's not as if it's just if someone was saying the right words, everything would be fine. You know, like
calm down, lads.
Like,
yes,
finally, that's exactly what we were thinking. That's what we needed. Why didn't someone think of saying this before? You know, so I think there has to be more to it than that. It's probably collective composure, and you can look at players who aren't on the pitch, and it's true. I would point to Josh Cullen. Certainly, when he hasn't been on the pitch, you see some of the more sort of ragged performances. Yet bad things have also happened while he's been on the pitch. Like John Egan, you know, who you've spoken to there. I think definitely him not being on the pitch, you could say you feel like you miss his presence. But in saying that, he also has been on the pitch in times where, like some of those choppy games that we reference. I do probably feel that in that the middle of the back three probably sets a tone for that area of the pitch, and like I think Nathan Collins long term is going to be top drawer. And I think we watched a goal against Ukraine and you see his attributes and you think, yes, like he's the one for the middle of the three for so many reasons, but actually maybe in the here and now he's maybe just not, and it's you need maybe that Egan presence there, and that Collins is slightly better, and he's had a weird period, I suppose, in his club career where he hasn't been picked, and like I didn't think he was, say, 100% at it last night relative to some other games, you know. And he's obviously in that zone where like everyone wants him to express himself and show the tactical skills that he undoubtedly possesses, but probably, you know, loose was a word that someone used to me earlier, and I could sort of see what they were saying about him, and maybe like with Egan in the middle of the three, and that cuts out an element of that, you know, because at times last night it did feel like it was just so easy for the back three, and there were loads of times where they were playing passes and often they were just behind the player or just a little bit to the side, and the pitch didn't seem to be moving great either. I think that could have been a factor as well, but like there was a sense that almost set the tone for like a tardiness at times that sort of manifested itself further up.
So on that then, because listen, Stephen Kenny afterwards was keen to point out this is all about France. The players are all pointing out it's all about France this week. It is the only game that matters, and we'll get onto that. But last night's game at home again against the lower ranked team, and that tardiness and sloppiness seems to come from the fact that the back three have so much possession in these games, and it goes out to the wing, and Alan Brown is buzzing around trying to find a little bit of space, and the second he comes to it, he has no option but to go back to them again, back and forth, and whereas that needs to be happening in midfield against teams like Latvia. And like Vinnie Perth was on this morning talking about the absolute refusal to change system, that now it is three at the back, absolutely fully wedded to this regardless of who we're playing, and that is the perfect system to play against France, and has been proven so against better opposition. Does he not need to be a bit more flexible at times at home and go, actually, let's go back to what I know from before I got this and what I thought I'd probably be doing, and playing four at the back, and play Darrell O'Shea at left back if I need to play him there, play Matt Doherty at right back, and have that possession that Ireland are having, 30 yards further up the pitch and have enough players in the middle of the park, because it did feel that they just had so much possession that's where the sloppiness came from, that they didn't know what to do with it. And how many times can you play the same ball out to Matt Doherty or Alan Brown and get it back before you just get a little bit bored with it, and there's no option in the middle of midfield at all.
Yeah, no, and like sometimes you're Callum O'Dowd receiving it with his back to goal, which isn't really him, and I see what you're saying. I think probably the point is, when you have a limited amount of time to spend with the team, you probably feel, and I did hear that discussion this morning, there was a sense of, well, the game against France is on Monday. As much as it's not an audition really in any way, you're still in some ways trying to work with certain patterns and relationships just because you haven't had these players for a couple of months, and some of them at their clubs won't have played this system, so it gets them back into the groove of playing in that way. But I acknowledge the point. I think the problem is it's possible that systems evolve. Like you have a system that works for a period of time, and then you reach a stage where no, you actually need to switch again. In England under Southgate, for example, have gone from back three to back four, and okay, they're higher level team, they've been playing in major tournaments, but still they're meeting up semi-regular, it's pretty much the same intervals, and it reaches a point where you evolve from one to the other. But I think the point is, if you look at it, 4 of Ireland's next 5 games competitively, it could be argued that the best system is that back three. Greece away, you can probably debate it, but probably for the 2 games against France and the game at home to Holland, that's, you might think it's probably the way to go. Because again, I know what you're saying about Darragh O'Shea going to left back. I suppose there is a lot of riches at centre back, and Matt Doherty in his best position, and a lot of the things that we would have spoke about when we were calling for Ireland to switch to that system. A lot of those issues still remain, or those points remain valid. Okay, I know maybe Shane Duffy's dropped off a little bit.
It is the biggest confusion of watching Ireland, which is when you look at the talents of the squad. Defensively is the area you go, they've got a lot about them there, that they have Collins, Bamidele, Egan, O'Shea, Coleman, Doherty, a huge amount of quality that maybe is not fully replicated up the other end of the pitch. But Ireland look decent in the final third, yet are actually struggling defensively in games.
Well, I suppose just even to flesh out that discussion, right? If Ireland then did go to, that's a debate point, if Ireland did go to a back 4, then you're talking about Kenny going back to what he knows or what he used to prefer. He always did playing with wingers, and it was generally a 4-2-3-1 or 4-1-4-1 or whatever you want to call it, more so 4-2-3-1. So you can I feel like we can slot the Irish defensive pieces into a hole comfortable enough, but then who's your 2? Okay, Cullen, could you play Smallbone as a 2 there maybe, or Malumbi, or but then left winger, right winger.
Mikey Johnson has emerged.
Well, Johnson's emerged, but I don't know, is he a 90-minute player? You've got McLean, you've got O'Dowda, I get it. On the right side, you play
Smallbone there.
Yeah, he could. Jason Knight a little bit narrow again, or Ogbene. But again, they're not all players who are playing those positions with their club, so there's possibly a bit of work to do to find your best strategy within that. And clearly Kenny has reached the stage where he spent a lot of last year talking about how the plan was to build a settled squad for the Euros this year, a settled plan. He's very much of the view, now I've done that now, and he's probably going to live or die by that now. And for me, I think, as I said, these games coming up, you can see how the system could probably be effective for them. Really hope Ireland are competitive going into October. There's a lot of ifs to get to that. So I'm not just saying it casually, but it is the thing where, imagine if Ireland did end up in a situation where they're playing Greece at home in November or in October,
knowing that a win qualifies.
Knowing that a win keeps them in it, or keeps open the possibility of being alive in the last day. And they are the times when you actually do worry about this team, it's in that type of fixture. But I would say the system is probably here to stay, for now anyway.
So the positives from last night then were the players who were brought in from the start, from Will Smallbone, Evan Ferguson getting his goal, the calmness and maturity of his post-match interview as well, just taking all of this so calmly and comfortably, and then Mikey Johnson off the bench. Let's hear from Will Smallbone first. So he was man of the match on what was his senior debut for Ireland, and he caught up with our own Stephen Doyle after the game.
Will, did you think you'd mark your senior debut for the Republic of Ireland with a man in the match award?
It's a very proud moment for me and my family, and obviously it was something I was looking forward to for a long time, and like you say, to get man in the match wasn't something maybe I was expecting, but I'm very happy it happened.
Your mum's from Kilkenny, isn't she? Was she here tonight? Any of the family here?
No, my mum was here, so like you say, she is very proud up there today.
Did she give you a message beforehand, or did she kind of stay back?
No, she's very forthcoming in her messages. So she was texting me, wishing me good luck and telling me to relax and enjoy it. And she's been great.
That's brilliant. You obviously played really well out there tonight. Good link up there with Evan Ferguson. He said himself here that maybe that experience playing underage level has helped you both.
I think it has. Obviously, we know we played many games on underage levels together, and we know each other's kind of movements and that. And to be out there and share the pitch with him today was very special, and very good day. And
even the two of you linking up really well with Michael Obafemi as well.
Obviously I know Michael from a long time playing under 18s at Southampton with him, and it's obviously nice to be out there with two good friends, and I've been looking forward to playing with Michael for a while, so I was happy to be out there with him today.
I know at Southampton you come through the academy, you're playing a lot central midfield, but you have ended up going out on the right, I know, towards the latter stage before you went out on loan in Stoke. At Stoke you've been more central, so how do you kind of see yourself in this Irish team?
I definitely see myself in a central area, whether that be as a number 10, number 8, but equally I do quite like kind of like a channel run to get in behind teams, and allows me to get the ball across the box, which I think with my fitness that it can allow me to do.
What have you made of coming in under Stephen Kenny? What's he done for your confidence, for your play?
He was great, especially when he obviously told me that I was playing. He just told me to go out there, enjoy myself, enjoy the moment, and play with no fear, essentially. And hopefully I did that.
Just want to ask you about Evan. I know he's behind you there. We'll keep it quiet, but when you see a player like him doing what he's doing, I'm sure all the other players have seen what he's doing. Does that give everybody confidence going into the game like France on Monday?
Yeah, exactly. I think, like you say, it gives everyone confidence. He's such a young age. He's done a lot in his short career, and I think he's obviously seems to have a knack for scoring goals. So hopefully, long may it continue for him. And buzzing for him today to get his goal on his first start at home. And he's a good lad, and he deserves it.
Yeah, that's Will Smallbone, who was man of the match last night. So Will Smallbone just turned 23 last month. He's on loan at Stoke, playing first team football in the Championship every week. Southampton player who was in and around the first team squad and starting to get games in the Premier League, and suffered an ACL injury, bit of a setback, and it's been a slow recovery from that. You mentioned there playing alongside Evan Ferguson with the 21s. I think it was probably a short enough stint, but you could tell really from, was it that first night against Italy with the 21s, that there was a bit about this guy?
Yeah, I watched them play against Sweden. I think it was Sweden, and Tala Rolly O'Neill got the late goal. And it was good to watch him, because I think, I know like sometimes it annoys people, you speak in like numbers about midfielders, like the 6 or an 8 or a 10, and it's sort of like it's modern football speak. Tim Sherwood probably wouldn't, I'm not sure how he would feel about it. But
is he an inside right?
I don't know what he is in 1950s football language, but there was this view that Ireland are crying out for a number 10, definitely crying out for like this, this creative player who can pick passes, probably in these type of games, and there's a sense that maybe there's a desperation for Smallbone to become that, even though in his club career is he maybe more of a number 8, and actually for all we look at his sort of assists and stuff, which seems to be very good. By all accounts, his athletic stats, his running stats are very good at Stoke as well. So there's that question mark over, and it's not always the case that someone's role for their club is becomes their role for their country. Like if Ireland needs someone in that department, then that's where he may play a little bit more advanced. And what you could see, and like even with the 21s, there was a little bit of that in terms of how they used them. But you could see even in the game I watched them, they played him in 2 different positions. And sure enough, last night with Ireland, he started in one position, but at the end he was one of the deeper midfield too, and he clearly has the skill set to do that as well. So I think he's someone who is going to play a lot of games this year, probably more than I envisaged at the start of it. I don't know if he starts on Monday now.
He's got to be in the mix when you talk about that role he can play, particularly against France, as to who's close to Evan Ferguson. So is it...
Are you assuming Ferguson's on his own then? I'm
assuming Ferguson is on his own, that Obafemi is on the bench.
Yeah.
And that maybe is it Knight and Smallbone just in behind him?
You see, that's a possibility. Like I hadn't really... I actually had that discussion with someone earlier. Is that maybe a an option because I suppose with Ferguson again, like, because he's become such a dominant figure in our discussion, like it's very natural to assume, okay, this team is going to be built around Ferguson, but actually, like he hasn't a huge amount of experience as playing as that central one, if you know what I'm saying, as that number 9. At senior level, like with Brighton, he's in a system that works, and there's like he plays with wingers at Brighton, you know, and Ireland is wing backs, and it's just a little bit different, little bit of a different dynamic there. And I am curious, like, is it possible that we'll play him just as the number 9 in the way that he played Adamida, you know, previously, and it's players up running off him. But part of me still thinks that against France, there's going to be a desire for real pace, like real out and out pace to stretch them at the higher end of the pitch. So is it a case that they try a version of a partnership again with Ferguson and someone else? And that just maybe means that in behind, that it is like Cullen will play, you'd assume Malumbi will play. He said that Knight was held back with Monday in mind. So again, you would assume if he doesn't play, that's a change of mind. You know, you assume he would play. So like you're talking about those 3 playing. So you're thinking, is it more Ferguson and Obafemi or Ferguson and Ogbene maybe? But it is maybe the other one. Maybe the wild card is.
Well, it was only just watching them last night and trying to figure out, as you say, on the assumption that Cullen, Malumbi and Knight all play. It will be interesting in that what does it take out of Ferguson's game if you're putting him as a number 9 and you're, I imagine, asking him to play in the shoulders of the centre backs. Like he's obviously, and even John Egan said they're playing against him at training. Like he's 18, but he's a man and he's physically well able to do that. But when you watch him for Brighton, like he's so smart in how he can drop deep. He's not expected to. He's expected to draw the centre backs forward and let, as you say, Mitoma, McAllister, March get in behind. Now that's not the way Ireland play at all. But maybe it's a needs must.
Yeah,
like this.
Yeah, it's just But then I think the point is it's a big ask for him to do that, and I just wonder now. Like Jason Knight is someone who can actually run in behind. Like he is. You know, he's quite quick. He just hasn't always. He's been a victim of his own importance at Derby, that he's played in so many different positions and they haven't let him go, and he sort of has dropped off our radar in a way in terms of being a player that we speak about. Like Knight can, and Smallbone even referenced there, he likes to make the odd channel run, but it's not quite the same. And you sort of assume, like you do have this feeling that, I'm not assuming, like it's probably an expectation that like France are going to be on top, you know, and you're going to want, and like a big bonus is, okay, Ferguson probably can drop in, that's his natural game, to get involved, to hold up the ball, but he does need those options off him, you know. And where like the width could otherwise start, like, you know, okay, you look at someone like O'Dowda, look at maybe the wing backs can provide a little bit of that, but that obviously requires a very structured setup in midfield to cover, to allow the wing backs to be able to roam forward. It's
so long since Adamida has played for Ireland. There's probably almost a nostalgia to it at this stage as to how good his performances were. I do remember analysing after some of those games that, you know, he struggled firstly with that task of trying to hold it up, but also that when he did, he had that exact problem of he was totally isolated. He was chasing the ball off into corners, he'd get it and there'd be nobody there beside him. So that would be the risk, that actually when Ireland do get possession, if they were to go with just Ferguson up there by himself, that you're kicking it down the lines, you're setting them off in chase, that France are so comfortable from playing it out from the back that you just leave him out of the game.
He's almost wasted.
Yeah, that you can't get him in there. Yeah. But like, you have to assume France turn up. Like, it's the one thing of the 2 games against Portugal. Portugal were dire in both of those matches, really, for the first hour. Like the one over in Faro in Portugal was an absolute shambles. They were a mess tactically. You got to assume that France, same group, same manager, they're coming with all their might.
You would assume so. I suppose, like, I mean, this was the game we have to speak about. Is you know, you have this France-Holland game tomorrow. The novelty of having a really big game in Ireland's group that you can watch, like, is generally at the same time, you know, as Ireland's games. And where are France at? Like, that is a little bit of an unknown. I mean, it's pretty obvious. You read their squad, you go through them. It's like, yeah, okay, world class, world class, world class. I mean, it's not. You wouldn't read it to be optimistic. The squad list, but I mean, they were pretty inconsistent last year. Their Nations League performances were abomination. I mean, that's why they've ended up in this situation, ended up in this group. Absolutely, the unexpected consequences, like screwing Ireland over really badly. Now, they turned it on for the World Cup, But it is a little bit of a come down now, and they do have this great. I think for them probably to avoid that hangover. Yeah, it's great that they get to play. Netherlands on a Friday night in Paris, and that's a really big prestigious fixture. But for them, you'd imagine that that's probably the focus of their week, and they start to think about Ireland on Saturday morning, whereas Ireland are thinking about France from Monday morning now. I mean, you need a lot of things to go right to sort of counteract the obvious disadvantage you face playing a brilliant team. But clearly, okay, they're top-class professionals, but they haven't been ruthless killers in qualifying, France. And in a way, like, I'm sort of thinking, yeah, like the more complacent France are, the better. I'd sort of be half rooting for France against Holland, actually.
You're fully expecting Didier Deschamps in his pre-match press conference to talk about coming up against the British style of football.
That type of thing, yeah. Get a couple of people to make it.
Long balls, we know what the Irish are about.
This lot's still going on about the Henry handball. Get over it. Get over it. Like a bit of that, but I think they're all their eyes are going to be on the Dutch. So, it's possible that they're not anticipating much in Dublin on Monday. I think that's, in a weird way, that's what Ireland probably want to be underestimated by France.
So just in terms of team selection and what Stephen Kenny might have learned, or how much he will read into it then from last night, John Egan will come in to the side again. I was asking him about the captaincy because there has been some speculation that maybe Seamus Coleman might hand over the armband on a permanent basis. He's saying Seamus Coleman is still very much the captain, but Coleman is a bit of a knock.
Yeah, he's a doubt, yeah.
So that would mean Doherty starts. If Coleman is fit, does Coleman start ahead of Doherty on the right wing?
So I would have thought it'd still be Doherty. I suppose maybe, like I was pretty adamant last night, that would have been the case. Maybe you have to rethink it a bit on the basis that probably does seem
Coleman's been playing really well.
Yeah, no, he has.
And there's been, Stephen Kenny hasn't been afraid to leave him out, and he's obviously had a huge amount of injuries. I think it's 7 out of 21 competitive games Coleman has started under Kenny.
A lot of it hamstring problems, which he seems to have overcome.
But he's never been in this sort of form at club level. I know Everton are struggling, but he's playing every week. He isn't a problem for Everton at the moment. He's getting up and down the pitch. I do wonder if he's fit, if Kenny thinks now is the time.
Yeah, no, and like it would be sort of a certain irony to it if then the decision's taken out of his hands if he's not fit. I feel like Doherty plays every time he's available for Kenny. Like if Doherty was playing regularly for his club, I don't even think there's a discussion. Now the discussion could be Coleman on the right of the back three, which is an alternate thing. And again, maybe if he was fine, like you could nearly, I mean, that wouldn't be a complete long shot, you could say, because there would have been a view Coleman at wing back. Like it is one of the most demanding positions on the pitch. But I think
it's the Armenia game at home, and we all left the stadium saying this will never happen again.
Yeah. But I think the thing is with Doherty is that, I think with Doherty, for all his probably how he can frustrate people, he is so good on the ball sometimes. And in terms of a wing back, Ireland need the wing back to be able to cut inside and sort of interact with the midfielder. You saw that with Smallbone and the little passes and the little clips and the little touches. I think Doherty,
the frustration with Doherty is a very Irish thing. I always feel that if he was playing for another country, they wouldn't have he's just, there's no great emotion ever with Matt Doherty.
It's his running style and
it's Roy Keane and Martin, and he's wearing gloves.
Yeah,
it's 14 degrees. He's wearing his gloves. That there's just something, he doesn't get fired up, pumped up. He doesn't talk about the game. He's just very calm. He's very relaxed. It's not what we want from our sports people. If he was blood and guts and everything with him.
He's not of GAA stock. There's no. He
played a bit. He's not a Fingolians man.
Oh well, I mean, if we will drain the life out of that if he did. But he's definitely not. He's not he doesn't have that wholesome front that maybe I think there's we want.
That takes away from his people, because often at times you see him out in the right wing and he's standing there and he's waiting for the ball to come. We just want them. We prefer the James McLeans of the world who are just tearing around.
Yeah. But I think I think the point is, if you think the better Ireland performances under Kenny, Doherty's generally been pretty good.
He's arguably been Kenny's best player.
Yeah, and that's I still going to the head. I still think he will always play him. But the Coleman revival has probably and Doherty's lack of football maybe plants a small seed of doubt, but I still think he probably feels technically he's so particularly well suited to that, and generally for all the complaints, okay, in Scotland probably was Scotland away is one example where he was done badly for a cross. But generally, I think he's played quite well in the games against the better sides. It's almost like, in some ways, the pattern of his performances for Kenny of running tandem with Ireland's. Good against the good teams, maybe not as good, and a symbol for frustration in some of the games against the lesser ones.
O'Dowda started last night, got his goal, played well, enough to get him a start on.
I think he would have been
Monday.
starting on Monday anyway. Yeah.
So, as you said, I think the assumption is that the three in midfield will remain with Cullen, Malumbi and Knight. So that big question then is, Ferguson's going to start. Ogbene comes on, gets his goal. Stephen Kenny's obviously always been a fan. Obafemi started last night, but has been brilliant off the bench at club. He's had to be at club level and knows how to get a late goal. How do you see him making this decision?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Smallbone as well.
It's like what we spoke about. It's a question of, does he feel that he needs to play with a two? And I know, like, the two are sometimes like split strikers, that one goes left and one goes right. Like Parrott is the other one we haven't mentioned, who probably would have been talking about him as a definite first choice player for Ireland. Last October, just hasn't really happened. Like that injury at Preston, and then since he's come back, you couldn't really say on form that he's put his hand up, even though at times his ability to play as that striker but then link him at midfield has been quite effective. And maybe we're all forgetting him, but I just get the sense that he's probably...
Do you think it's a purely tactical decision?
Ferguson.
Is there any, I don't know, I don't want to say PR, but mentality going out that France, best team in the world, have come to Dublin and we've gone out there with Michael Obafemi and Evan Ferguson, two young men, two strikers. We brought it to them. We weren't afraid.
Yeah, I see your point, but but even taking out the PR side, there is a sense of, okay, hit them with something they're not expecting. Like, try and occupy them, with two players. I think the thing for me though is, I think Obafemi hasn't been playing regularly enough, and I think what we've seen with him is that when he's come to Ireland camp in good form, he's been very good, but at times last night you could actually see Malumbi, I think it was Malumbi at midfielders, was getting after Obafemi a bit and getting after the forward players, thinking they were at times a little bit isolated or a little bit outnumbered. And I can see Ogbene can definitely, because Ogbene has a certain amount of defensive awareness, from having played at wing back for his club, and you could argue that he could sort of defend from the front in some ways. Like, it depends. Like, if France playing Hernandez at left back, who can be really attacking and it can be really quick. There's this talk about Camavinga potentially playing there. Like, what type of France are you expecting? Like, is it Mbappe on the left, or is it Mbappe through the middle? Like, is Giroud going to still play with Mbappe on the left, or these shifts that you've seen France made? Like, there's a feeling maybe, like, you will have Mbappe through the middle, but if Mbappe is through the middle, then you could have some real powerful, quick attackers out wide, and those things have to influence. Like, what you're asking maybe of your two strikers is to be getting back to support, as much as they're attacking input, and part of that makes you think about the whole idea of it being like a Jason Knight and a Smallbone in some ways, trying to do that. But I guess it's a question of how much you want to be reactive to what France are doing and how much you want to be proactive yourself and trying to set the tone in some way.
And just to finish then on the much bigger picture and the conversations that we'll be having on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday about Stephen Kenny's future. Obviously, we all want them to go on and win and have one of those great nights, and maybe the momentum of that kickstarts the entire thing, and they take it in. You say they get to October and they're in a chance of qualifying automatically. The fact that the draw is thrown in France and Netherlands means that it's not as straight down the line as it would have been pre-draw.
Yeah.
He has to qualify. There's also the quirk where it's not as guaranteed this time round as it was last time round that they will get a playoff.
Oh yeah.
Which means
Don't
that
want to go there
Ireland,
today in great detail.
we're not going to get into
Let's
the
not go there.
complications, but that it is worth pointing out that last time, no matter what happened really in the group, Ireland were going to end up in a playoff, and they got that playoff against Slovakia. This time, they will need some things to go their way to get that end result. So where does Stephen Kenny stand 3 days before his first game in terms of support within the FAI and the changes that are happening there? Like, is he in a comfortable position?
I wouldn't say he's in a comfortable position. I think, to me, his whole year is going to revolve around the summer. and unless Ireland win against France on Monday, in which case that obviously gives you like credit.
Gibraltar at home in your third game is 6 points out of 9, regardless.
Yeah,
of
that gives you great credit, and you'll have the memory of that night. And if you have the memory of that night, then of course you can sell the idea that, well, we can deliver more great nights like this down the tracks. But to me, it's very hard to avoid like concluding that it's all going to revolve around Greece in the summer, because okay, third doesn't matter in this group. It's important. This mistake we made. Third doesn't matter in terms of the playoff. The playoff is predetermined now. So Ireland finishing fourth or third, they have the same chance of being in the playoff. But third obviously does matter in the sense of the optics, the confidence you would have in the manager if that playoff scenario comes to pass through the Nations League thing. And I think, like, if Ireland can go to win in Greece in June, even let's say Ireland lose on Monday, as most people I think would expect, and then they've 0 points, and they go and win in Greece. They go and they beat Gibraltar at home. Well, then you're going into the second half of the year still in it, believing that the France and the Dutch games in September, and then you can just see how Kenny gets the whole campaign from there. You can see how it naturally pans out to a point where, if the FA were ever going to think about making a change, I think it would be reckless to suddenly do it in November. Just before a potential playoff. You feel like they're going to, that if there's going to be any type of review, maybe it's more so if you have 0 points after 2 games, that's when I think he's going to find it hard. So I said I hope it doesn't end up in that situation, but I think there'll be a lot of scrutiny on how they handle, and when it comes to the point where Kenny, where and I'm sure he knows this himself, like all these great near misses at times in certain games, he sort of just needs to get one over the line. Once you get one over the line, you can make the argument, well, look, we've shown we can do it. The problem at the moment
last night summed it up in a way. You're 2-0 up at home against the Latvia side, doing absolutely nothing, and suddenly there's drama where there doesn't need to be any. Yeah,
that's it. It's often that 1 step forward, 2 back thing going on, and so it goes back to the start in terms of some of the near misses. I know people talk about improvement, but you think about it, at times, Ireland played quite well in Slovakia that time, and then lost in penalties, and they haven't
Conor
really.
Horan has the chance cleared off the line.
Yeah, so it's not as if there's been a dramatic improvement. Obviously, the profile of the squad has changed, and a lot of things have changed. It's just, it's making people believe they can be clinical enough almost to eke out these results, and that's why, that summer camp. And there's going to be a long build up to that Greece game.
They're going to Turkey for a couple of weeks.
Going to Turkey, well, not for a couple of weeks, but for, I think maybe, I think it might be 9-10 days or so, building into it. But it's just a case of, okay, Greece are a good side. It's a really bad time to play them because of the conditions. But Ireland need to show that the reason they aren't qualifying is because they drew France and Holland. If that scenario comes to pass, if you struggle against Greece, well, then it's hard to really lean too heavily on the draw, because the argument could be made, well, you possibly wouldn't have done it anyway. If you struggled against your 4th seed in your group twice, why would we believe you'd outperform any of the other second seeds? So that's why that summer thing is particularly important, I think.
Great stuff, Dan. Predicting a 3-2 for Monday night?
Let's take a 3-2. I'm not going to say who it's for.
Well, exactly. Plenty of goals. All our football is brought to you by Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. And we will have full live commentary of Monday's game. Stephen Doyle and Stewie Byrne talking you through that. Joe will be live from the Aviva all evening as well.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk.